This is UC Trends 2020 and we're here at Five9's offices in San Francisco to speak to their CEO, Rowan Trollope. We want to understand more about how Five9 has been leading the CCaaS or contact center as a service market for a number of years now. We want to understand more about the trends that are impacting their business, but also try and appreciate a bit more about the culture and personalities behind the scenes of their success. Rowan, thanks so much for having us into the very new looking Five9 San Francisco office.
Welcome to Five9.
Well, our pleasure. Thanks for having us in again. I wanted to understand a little bit personally from you. I know a little bit about your story, but some of the viewers might not, about how you got involved in the customer experience industry and how you came to be sitting here as CEO of Five9.
Sure. Well, in the customer experience industry, which would be, I've been at Five9 for 18 months now. And my job before that is I worked at Cisco, running the collaboration business. As you know, we talked back then. And collaboration within Cisco, I ran the collaboration business, among other things at the end, but mainly the collaboration business. I was there for 5 years, and the contact center was part of that group. So I've been all in all now in this sort of industry and space for about 8 years, and it's been a wild ride.
And I think something we've spoken about before, you were seeing more and more of a trend, weren't you, from customers about how important the whole CX aspect of their business was?
I was. In fact, I mean, it starts with me as a consumer. You know, I always kind of look at my own experience and say, gosh, you know, we've entered this age, I call it the age of excellence, where consumer expectations have never been higher. And it's almost like they've hit a knee in the curve, like an S curve, where it's all of a sudden consumer expectations are just out of control, like super high. And you know, a lot of people like to credit that to sort of like millennials have different expectations and so on, but I think everyone in general, as a result of tech companies like Apple and the tech industry in general, have delivered these amazing experiences. And so it's created a hunger and a demand amongst buyers like you and me to have a great experience with a business, and you kind of know that it's possible. So it's like, why aren't they delivering me that great
Why don't
experience?
we get this from everyone?
Yeah. And I think we're empowered now because we get to make a choice. You know, it used to be that I'd run down to whatever my retailer was, and whatever they had on the shelf is what I would buy. Today, I go direct online for almost everything that I purchase as a consumer, and as a result, I have way more choice, and I also have a voice as a customer where I can express my satisfaction or dissatisfaction online broadly to my friends. And so businesses are trying to sort of frankly scrambling to keep up with that. That's what got me so interested in it. Was starting as just purely as a consumer and what my expectations were.
And what took you from that sort of realization, as you said, your consumer realization, what you were seeing in your previous roles, to Five9? What was the role what really brought you into that role?
Well, I think that over the year and a half before I joined Five9, so we're kind of going back about 3 years now, what I had seen at Cisco, where a contact center was less than 1% of the company's revenue, you know, I had this experience where it was in nearly a third of my executive briefings. So I was meeting with CIOs and CEOs and you know all kinds of executives at Fortune 500 and Global 2000 companies, really all around the world. And they were about a third to a half of those meetings, they would ask about customer experience transformation. What can you do to help me with customer experience transformation? And where Cisco had much more to say about employee experience, right? Given the network and you know the collaboration technologies and video conferencing and WebEx and everything else, and we certainly had something to say about customer experience. So I just saw this growing wave of demand from business to be much more focused on customer experience, and Five9 sort of has been a disruptor in that space and a really interesting company.
Yeah, and Five9's growth in that space is well documented. Since you've joined, as you said, it's been about 18 months, you've got sort of that external view and now an internal view where you can appreciate the nuances. What do you attribute that to? What do you think's been the secret of the success?
Well, Five9 is a new kind of tech company. For a really long time in enterprise IT, sort of the software industry and even hardware that's been serving IT, there has been a tendency to outsource complexity from the software company to the customer. So think about the fact that take the security space, for example, the average large enterprise company has over 75 separate security products that they have to integrate together. And the contact center is no different. The contact center is a patchwork of legacy and new applications and dozens of different bits and pieces that get pulled together from many, many different companies. And they don't all work together very well. And in some cases, intentionally, those companies are competing with each other. So what I've been hearing as I've been out on the road with contact center buyers and people in the CX space is enough. Like, we need simplicity. We need stuff that's going to work. We need you to play well with others. And Five9 was sort of founded on that idea that a new kind of tech company needed to emerge to service this need. And as a result, over half of our company, over half the people in our company, so well over 500 people, wake up every day at talking to customers. Everyone is customer focused. It's like it's deeply ingrained into the culture of this company to make customers happy with our products. Our net promoter scores, as a comparison or just like one data point there, are off the charts for enterprise software. Our retention rates are off the charts for enterprise software because we were founded on this idea that a new kind of tech company needed to come about to help businesses transform and to take away all of that complexity.
You mentioned that internal company culture focusing on customers and half 500 of the employees being focused on speaking to customers. That's what I was going to ask you about next is what's it like, what I want to try and get for the viewers is an insight into what it's like working for one of these rapidly growing innovative tech companies. What's the culture and the personality like on a day-to-day basis?
Well, that's a great question. I thought about this for a while after I joined Five9. I noticed something different when I interviewed at the company. And I couldn't quite put my finger on what it was, because I actually interviewed at some other companies too. I looked at lots of companies, have certainly talked to lots of companies, and have seen now lots of different company cultures. And it's absolutely clear that Five9 is one of a handful of the ones who stood out for me. And the thing that stood out the most was the willingness and the almost maniacal focus on doing the right thing for the customer. And there are a set of those companies that have emerged that have said, look, we could talk about market share, or we can talk about, having the best, most crazy innovation, or this or that other thing, but all of that doesn't really matter if you're not making your customers ridiculously delighted with your product, if you're not servicing them above everything else. And that's something that Five9 it's just ingrained into the culture, and you feel it when you walk around the halls. I felt it when I interviewed. It was just, that is the main focus of the business. And I feel it when I talk to my customers. I mean, funnily enough, they love us. Our customers love Five9. Whenever we go live, our teams have a celebration and almost like a birthday party for those customers with cake and all kinds of other things. So there's something about that that's really, really unique and special here. There's a handful of other companies that have emerged, I think, that embody that same spirit. Zoom is one of them. I know you're going to be talking to Eric at Zoom. He's an inspiring guy, obviously with an incredible story about making customers happy. And I think that trend in enterprise IT is something that's now starting to get into a handful of companies. And those are the companies, ironically, that have the highest growth, or perhaps not ironically.
No, absolutely not. In terms of the last, well, actually, I was going to say the last 12 months, but since you came on, and I realise this is difficult to do, if you had to put together a highlight reel, or you had to go back and pick out a few standout moments from the past 12, 18 months, what would you look at in particular since you came to Five9?
The time I've spent with customers has been the most rewarding time. So I've had a chance to actually go into call centers and to watch what's happening. And what was really inspiring is to see how forward-thinking our customers are. Our customers are constantly enlightening me and bringing me up to speed. I actually have a background in the call center, so my very first job was taking calls from customers, and it's been really interesting to go back to that world. And in some ways, it feels like the customer service world hasn't changed much, at least from the outside as a consumer. But in amongst Five9's customer base, these are some of the most forward-thinking customers, and they are totally different. I mean, I've been visiting call centers that are, beautiful spaces. They're not what you would imagine, the sweatshop and the cube farms. I mean, these are beautiful spaces with people that are passionate about their jobs. They're at-home moms that are flexibly working on the Five9 platform. There are all kinds of incredible stories that are coming out where the call center that used to sort of be in the basement in that sweatshop kind of thing has emerged more as the front door of the business and more as a place to be celebrated, and there's a tremendous amount of innovation coming out of this industry.
Well, I wanted to talk to you about that. I wanted to talk about trends, and you mentioned a couple of things there which I thought were really interesting in terms of, I want to try and understand what trends you think are going to impact your provision of software and technology over the next few years coming up, whether that's emerging technology, and you and I have talked in the past about AI and ML, but also workplace trends. You talked about the example of flexible working for contact center workers, the workplace trends. What particular areas do you think are going to impact most your provision of technology?
Yeah, so there's probably 5 or 6 of these that I could sort of rattle off. The first one is, you have to start with the customer. So the contact center needs to follow their customer and to deliver support and service and engagement in whatever way the customer really wants it. So if you want to know what channels you should be in, ask your customer. What our unique insight here, a little bit unique, and I've sort of had this perspective for a long time before coming into this business, is if you want to know what customer expectations are in communications with businesses, start with their preferences in terms of how they communicate amongst themselves. So that person-to-person communication.
So consumer-led.
The consumer-led. So just watch how you or examine how you communicate with your friends. And it's a patchwork of IM and WhatsApp and messaging and phone calls and little videos and Instagram posts. Well, take all of those trends that you're seeing in your personal life and just carbon copy them into business. That's how we all want to be able to interact with businesses. I want my cable company to send me a text before they call me. I might want to take the call, but I might not be able to take it now. Send me a text first. Let me respond. Oh, let me get back to you in 5 minutes. And then they call back or something like that. So it's really blending seamlessly all of those things. So that's one, is like, if you want to know where businesses need to be, watch what people are doing amongst themselves first, and you can predict it. So that's the first thing. The second thing, so the second trend is about being open and flexible. So, like I mentioned earlier, for too long, software and enterprise IT software companies have sort of outsourced complexity and sort of left it up to the IT shop to make it all work. And so the big demand is play well with everybody. You need to integrate into my back-end systems. You need to connect with my knowledge about the customer and so on. And that's something that that's something that is easy to understand but hard to do.
It's something we've been waiting for a long time in technology as well.
Absolutely.
And you've been in the industry longer than I have.
Absolutely.
We've been waiting for this interoperability.
What's happened is we've seen a new breed of technologies emerge that's made it easier than ever to connect things together. So the old world of connecting things together was integrations. And this involved professional services and heavy lifting and blah, blah, blah.
Complications.
Yeah. Now what we've moved to is, if you've seen like Slack, for example, like add to Slack. It's like one button and you can add an app into Slack. Or connecting to Facebook. It's one button and you can connect the app to Facebook. So in many ways, the consumer industry has led a wave of how easy you can make it to build these integrations. We're seeing in the contact center this shift of the contact center products like ours not being products as much as they are being platforms. So being able to be platforms. And this is helping to enable businesses to interconnect all of their systems and backends in together so that they can provide a cohesive view of the customer. So that's the second trend, right? It's interconnection and making it super easy as one click to integrate things together in the enterprise. So the third trend is customers want a personalized experience. Right? If I'm a consumer, I not only want you to show up where I am and use the right channels, I want you to know who I am. And I want you to treat me like I'm the only customer or I'm the most important customer in the world. I want you to understand my journey and what's happened to me. And so what's happening is the bright line of the contact center, the sort of boundaries of the contact center are blurring, where the contact center has become integrated into the very fabric of the company. And that's been happening for a while, but it's happening way more now. So it isn't this sort of monolithic, like, oh, customer service happens over there. It's like customer service is moving to the forefront of the business. And as a result, what is the customer service contact center is increasingly blurring. And so that is really about playing well with others and being able to tie all these systems together. So I think that's another aspect in terms of trends that we're seeing. The fourth one is all about solving what I call the hard problem of contact centers. The hard problem of contact centers is that we've always known for 30 years, at least since I've been sort of working in and around this space, we've known what it takes to deliver a great experience to an end user. The hard problem was how to actually do it in a cost-effective way. And we knew this 30 years ago, and many of the technologies that have come up over the last 30 years that were put in place to make customer service better and more efficient actually did the opposite. They made it more efficient, but they made it way worse for customers. So if you ask a sort of man on the street or woman on the street, how's your customer experience these days, and is it getting better or worse? A lot of them actually say it's getting worse. We've done these surveys, and they'll say it's getting worse. So we put it's call avoidance and ways to be more efficient, and it actually gets in the way of that experience that the customer wants to have. And so the trend there is that we believe for the first time in history, a technology has emerged that is going to transform the ability for contact centers to deliver incredibly more efficient agents and experiences for customers. And that's really powered by AI. So it's a few different things that have been happening, but it's AI is one of the key enablers. Workflow and automation are the other two key enablers that are allowing agents to be way, way, way more efficient. So those are four really important trends in the contact
And I
center.
suppose it's something we've talked about before. The move to cloud-based platforms has effectively opened the door to all of that innovation, because effectively in the past you had all this dark data that wasn't available to be leveraged, and now by taking advantage of CCaaS and cloud contact centers, you can actually do these things.
It is, and it's something that I talk to customers about is cloud is not a destination, it's a starting point. It's the beginning of your transformation. It opens the door to all of those things. That's what's so exciting about it. It also leads to another trend that we like to talk about, which is the contact center as a source of customer data. The conversations that customers have with businesses all flow through the contact center. And it turns out, surprise, surprise, what customers say is really important and valuable and useful. Now, it hasn't been useful, it's all been dark until today. And that's because it was mostly voice. When a conversation between you and your customer is mostly voice, and that voice is sort of like locked up in a WAV file, nobody can get access to the insights in it. And computer speech to text hasn't been good enough, and it's been too expensive to turn all of that into data that can be processed. That's changing. So between Google and Amazon and others, you're starting to see the cost of automatic speech recognition drop dramatically, while you see the effectiveness of speech recognition drive up hugely. And we've all noticed this at home. Like Alexa and Google are super good at recognizing human voices now. So we're on the cusp of all of that data from conversations amongst customers sort of opening up. And Five9's in this sort of unique position where we have over 5 billion minutes of recorded customer conversations on our platforms now. And we have partnerships with companies like Google to unlock the value of all of that data.
Just lastly, Rowan, before I let you go, I wanted to take you on a trip in an imaginary time machine.
Okay.
And if we could go forward to New Year's Eve 2020 and look back on the year that is to come, from your perspective as CEO, what things would you like to see from Five9 to know that you've had a successful year?
That's good. I'd like to make sure we continue to beat and raise our financial forecasts.
Always helps.
Yeah. Look, we have very aggressive growth targets. I would like to see the number of successful customers on our platform go up even more. And that's a combination of retaining the customers we have and continuing to make them super happy, as well as getting new customers on the platform. So that's the first one. The second is we've got some key partnerships we want to see be really, really successful. So we're super excited about our Zoom partnership. They've got an incredible phone offer now in addition to their meetings offer. So Five9, because of that partnership, we are a big Zoom phone shop now. We deployed that to our 1,000 employees, or are deploying it. And we also have Zoom meetings here. So we've got, I would say, the most cutting edge experience from meetings and phones provided by Zoom. And then that's integrated to our Five9 contact center. So I'd like to see that be hugely successful with our joint customers. And then we've also signed a partnership with Microsoft. And so Microsoft is really trying to make more and more progress on the UC front, and they've got a very compelling offer there now tied into Teams with Teams UC. And so we've been at the forefront of partnering with Microsoft to make sure that Five9 can provide a great offer there.
Well, I really look forward to seeing the year to come and reviewing it with you again in 2020. But for the meantime, Rowan, thanks so much for having us into the office and telling us a bit more about your plan.
Thank you very much.